A look at the voter turnout and lines at precincts across the 4 states.
Tens of millions across the country have already voted, and tonight millions more are expected to cast their ballot. I'm Skyler Henry in Alexandria, Virginia, as Election Day is underway.
And a missing Joplin teen turns up safe in Wisconsin.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
It's Election Day, and voters in the 4 states and across the U.S. cast their ballots. This is KOAM News at 5. We have plenty of election coverage coming your way, but first, a Joplin teen who was missing for more than a month has been found safe. KOAM's Zach Dodge has details.
Many in the area can let out a sigh of relief after 14-year-old Leora Hardy is found safe in Wisconsin. Hardy was first reported missing on September 17th from the area of D and North Wall Street in Joplin. The FBI and National Center for Missing and Exploited Children assisted in the search. Hardy reportedly turned herself in to a law enforcement agency in Wisconsin yesterday and is in good health.
So for us, as this was dragging on, we had great concern, and investigators in this case put in thousands of hours, and we had the help of numerous law enforcement agencies and organizations, and the public, from sharing social media to news agencies covering her story. There was a lot of information put out on this case, and a lot of work went into it, and so we're just so glad that we had such a successful resolution to it.
JPD is currently working with police in Wisconsin to bring Hardy back home to Joplin. Reporting in Joplin, Zach Dodge, KOAM News.
The criminal investigation into her disappearance is still underway. Nick Kelly joins us now with a first look at the weather on what's turned out to be a beautiful election day.
Yeah, mild with a lot of sunshine to be thankful for, Dow, along with the south breeze, which is still shown by Old Glory just outside our station on the eastern sides of Cherokee County. We have continued with mostly sunny skies throughout the day, but I am watching our next wave ready to come out of the Four Corners, and at least in the central parts of the Rockies. That's going to bring some cloud cover our way as we head toward the middle of the week. In the meantime, though, still looking at mostly sunny skies, temperatures holding right around 70 in most spots, some lower to middle 70s in our far western counties. Mild, all because of that south breeze at about 5 to 15 with some gusts near 20. And that south breeze means just a chilly night ahead of us. So that once we start the evening out in the 60s, we'll just fall and stay in the 50s for the rest of the night. We'll break down some more mild days ahead of us, including our next chance for rain coming up in a bit, though.
All right, we'll see you soon. All right, voting is underway, and polling places here in the 4 states include St. Paul's Methodist Church in Joplin, where hundreds of voters have been making their way through a long line to have their voices heard. KOAM's Kate Kelly joins us from there live.
Even though a lot of people have voted absentee, the majority of voters in our area are showing up to the polls in person. And as you can see, the turnout is big. Now, the line has gone down a bit since noon, although it's starting to build back up again. The wait time is sitting at around 45 minutes to an hour, still about an hour faster than this morning. One poll worker told me about 150 people were here waiting at 6 a.m. And so far, nearly 1,500 votes have been cast. These voters say it's worth the wait to have their voices heard.
This is a really contentious election, so I think it's important, no matter who you're voting for, to make sure you get out and vote.
Your vote really matters. Even if you're on the fence, just come and vote.
3,500 people belong to this precinct. Poll workers tell me they're expecting to see about 2,000 total before things wrap up. Of course, polls close at 7 in Joplin. Kate Kelly, KOAM News.
There's quite a line behind you, Kate Kelly. Thanks. Voters in Kansas also have a little under 2 hours to get to the polls. We check in now with KOAM's Caitlin Shive, who's at the Countryside Christian Church.
Well, voters are continuing to show up at the polls here in Kansas, and County Clerk Don Pyle did tell me that they have been experiencing some hiccups throughout the day regarding some technical issues like wrong addresses for residents, typos, and some early voters' advance ballots being flagged for technical reasons, leading a few people to have to come back down to the polls to vote on a provisional ballot. But he says that was only a few out of the 20,000 ballots they are expecting to be cast by the end of the day. Here at Countryside Christian Church, people are still trickling in to vote. Workers say it has been smooth sailing for them and that there has been more than 1,000 votes cast so far.
We've had over 1,000 vote here today, counting provisional. So, we'll probably have maybe 1,400.
Another rush of voters is expected soon as more people start to get off work. We're starting to see that a little bit here as we speak. If you're in Kansas and you have not cast your vote, you have until 7 p.m. to do so. Reporting live in Pittsburgh, Caitlin Shive, KOAM News.
All right, Caitlin, thanks. Voters in a lot of places across our nation are standing in long lines to make their voices heard. Those votes will be added to the roughly 100 million early votes. In the final hours of the 2020 election, President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden are making their final push to rally their supporters. Skylar Henry reports.
President Trump visited the Republican National Committee headquarters in Arlington, Virginia, to thank the staffers who helped run his re-election campaign. Without citing evidence, he said allowing states to continue counting votes past Election Day is dangerous.
You have to have a date, and the date happens to be November 3rd, and we should be entitled to know who won on November 3rd.
Overnight, the president returned to the White House after holding 5 rallies in 4 battleground states. He's promised the crowds from his rallies will show up to the polls on Election Day like a red wave.
Good to be home!
Vice President Biden spent the morning in Scranton, Pennsylvania, to visit his childhood home with his 2 granddaughters. Inside, he signed a wall with the words, "From this house to the White House, with the grace of God." Last night, he made a final pitch to voters in the battleground state.
The vast majority of Americans are done with the chaos, the corruption, the failure.
From Connecticut to California, polls are now open across the country.
I think everybody needs to get out and vote, make it happen.
This is a very important election. It's going to change the history of our country.
Here in Alexandria, Virginia, and in polling locations across the country, election officials are working to prioritize the health and safety of voters with coronavirus protocols, including signage encouraging social distancing, mask wearing, and plexiglass partitions. It's unclear if a winner will be declared tonight, as some states could take days to count all the ballots. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Alexandria, Virginia.
Early election results from some states are expected to start rolling in shortly after 6 p.m. President Trump will spend election evening at the White House. Former Vice President Biden will be in Wilmington, Delaware. Now, today's KOAM News Now Instapoll. We're asking, how confident are you that votes will be counted properly nationwide? Very confident, somewhat confident, or not confident? You can join in the conversation by voting at KOAMnewsnow.com/vote or through the KOAM News Now mobile app. Results update automatically, and we're going to check in on the numbers periodically throughout this evening's newscast. A little bit later, teen shopping trends.
To the malls with their friends. I'm Elise Preston with a look at the pandemic's impact on teenage shopping.
And 18 states broke their daily records for new coronavirus cases. More on that in Health Watch. In the U.S., more than 575,000 cases of COVID-19 were reported in the last week. Some of the political battleground states are also battlegrounds for the virus. Even so, the CDC says that people who are sick with the coronavirus can still vote in person. Reporter Naomi Ruckham has the latest from New York.
Americans headed to the polls wearing face masks as coronavirus infections hit new records around the country. Cases are on the rise in more than 40 states. Wisconsin is facing one of the biggest surges in the country. Nearly a third of test results are now coming back positive. Pennsylvania recorded its biggest one-day increase on record, and Massachusetts is under a stay-at-home advisory in hopes of curbing rising case numbers.
We're telling people to go home. We're not telling them to go to their friend's house or their neighbor's house or somebody else. We're telling them to go home.
Here in New York, city officials are asking the public not to give in to pandemic fatigue. The infection rate is still low, but the mayor sees cause for concern.
605 cases. We are watching that very carefully. Some of that, again, is because of a lot more testing, but is still cause for concern.
Cases are on the rise in Colorado, where the Denver Broncos announced both their team president and general manager John Elway have tested positive for COVID-19. In Turlock, California, emergency workers are facing their own emergency. 8 of the 42 firefighters there have tested positive.
We do have protocols in place to keep the stations isolated with the exception of emergency calls, but we have a duty to the city to respond to all emergencies.
All this as one of President Trump's top coronavirus advisors delivered a stark warning. In an internal memo, Dr. Deborah Birx wrote, "We are entering the most deadly phase of the pandemic." Naomi Ruckham, CBS News, New York.
In Europe, Austria, Greece, and Sweden joined the list of countries ordering new pandemic restrictions. A new study finds 17% of U.S. adults used a special diet over a 3-year period. The most common special diet was a weight loss or low-calorie diet. The National Health and Nutrition Survey also found about half of adults have diet-related chronic issues such as cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, or type 2 diabetes. Let's check back in with our KOAM News now. It's to poll again. Our question today is, how confident are you that votes will be counted nationwide? At this point, 22% say they're very confident, 12% somewhat confident, 66%, 2 out of 3 say not confident. You can join in the conversation by giving your answer at KOAMnewsnow.com/vote or through the KOAM News Now mobile app. A little bit later, how the pandemic is changing the way teens spend their money.
But first, we'll stay wild. How about mild for the next few days before our chance for rain starts to pick back up? Forecast up next. We stayed nice and quiet once again, and certainly the mild trend continued once again for us today, continuing a trend that started off pretty much yesterday after we saw highs push back into the mid-60s. We saw temperatures, thankfully, not cool off so much this morning with upper 40s for overnight lows. But look at how we catapulted once again back into the mid-70s for afternoon highs. And we're still looking okay from outside our station right now. Old Glory still showing a south breeze in place. And it's the same story out at Joplin Regional, where we're sitting at 68, south breeze at 8. Humidity, though, still kind of low at 32%. That's why we were able to catapult back into the 70s for afternoon highs. But now that the sun's beginning to set, we're already back into the upper 60s to near 70 across southwestern Missouri, while everyone else on the Kansas and Oklahoma side, lower to middle 70s, still trying to hold on. And thankfully, temperatures won't be dropping off too much throughout the course of the night once again. Earlier today, we had a south breeze at about 5 to 15 with some gusts near 20. Even though that breeze lightens up just a hair tonight, it stays in place. So we just have a chilly evening and a chilly night ahead of us. We'll be in the mid-60s, most of us, at the top of the hour. And then we'll fall through the upper 50s for the rest of the evening. Eventually, between 50 and 53 degrees for overnight lows. So thankfully, not too cool for the night ahead of us as we continue to stay mainly quiet this evening on the Skywatch Storm Tracker. In terms of our next surface system, our next cold front on the way, it's not even on shore yet, but it is beginning to make its presence known across the Pacific Northwest. It still has a lot of real estate to travel before it gets here by early next week. In the short term, though, it's nice that we were staying quiet underneath this upper level ridge, but this upper low coming out of the Four Corners, that's going to be passing by with mainly cloud cover as we get you through the middle of the week on your Wednesday. Everyone stays quiet throughout the course of the evening, but as that upper wave begins to work in, we'll see partly cloudy skies at the very least pick on up, but also that will help us stay mainly in the 50s for overnight lows. We'll drop back to 53 degrees, south breeze at 5 to 15. It picks up to 10 to 20 during the day, and despite mostly cloudy skies, we'll still stay mild for the day ahead of us. 67 by noon, pushing afternoon highs to about 71 in Joplin. Everybody, though, let's say between 69 and 72 degrees, so still mild despite this quick wave passing by with a good deal of cloud cover. Unfortunately, if you need rain, not enough moisture for this to bring rain, so this is a dry wave that'll pass on through and Amscray as we head toward Thursday afternoon. At least we'll start the weekend off on a good note with partly to mostly sunny skies and highs staying in the 70s. We stay quiet for Saturday and have a look out to the west. A pair of upper lows ready to bring that cold front and just offshore the Pacific Northwest. That will start heading our way. I think we can see a few showers possible on Sunday, but I'm seeing the better rain chances with this system overall picking up on Monday and Tuesday. And once we get on the backside of that front, we'll be falling through the 60s and into the 50s, so turning chilly for sure by next Tuesday. Before the rain chances work in, let's stay quiet for tomorrow despite cloudy skies, highs near 71, staying in the lower 70s through Saturday. And then we'll see, thankfully, some more rain chances on the way to start next week out, Dow.
Temperatures look pretty nice, and we'll need the rain by this weekend.
A little bit above normal, but not too bad of it.
All right, thanks, Nick. Coming up, what a new survey shows about the buying trends of teens during this pandemic. First, though, we honor a local World War II veteran. Homer Smith served in the U.S. Army from 1942 to 1945. The Oswego, Kansas native was stationed in Germany, France, and England. And we salute Private First Class Homer Smith, a four-state hero. A lot of businesses aren't taking any chances with possible unrest on the way. From New York to San Antonio to Denver, storefronts around our country are boarding up doors and windows in anticipation of possible rioting and violence, regardless of who wins the election. In Beverly Hills, Rodeo Drive has been closed to cars and pedestrians. Teenagers are buying less clothing and more video games. The pandemic is changing the way the Gen Z age group spends money and causing teens to tighten the purse strings like never before. Reporter Elise Preston has more.
Alexis Berghalter is a high school junior in Columbus, Ohio. Her passion is competitive tennis, and until the pandemic, she enjoyed trips to the mall.
I think it was really just a good way to hang out with your friends, get stuff you need.
Teenage shoppers are an important slice of the nation's economy. Piper Sandler, senior research analyst Erin Murphy tracks their spending.
This year in particular, spending was at the lowest we've seen in the 2 decades that we've conducted this survey.
The survey says teens spent about $2,100 this year, a 9% drop from last year, a trend that's at least partly a result of the pandemic.
There's clearly things in the wallet that you can't spend on that maybe you used to, whether it's, going out to eat with your friends or whether it's going to concerts.
Spending on cosmetics dropped 20% and apparel was down 11%, with Nike as the #1 brand. One area that bucked the trend, video games.
Video games moved from 8% of the total wallet to 10% of the wallet.
Another change is in the way teenagers shop. The pandemic drove them out of stores and online. 90% now say they spend money on e-commerce.
Alexis says she never shopped online before this year. Now she spends about $120 a month over the internet, money she earns doing chores.
I want to be sad for myself that I can't see my friends as much and hang out with my friends, but I just know people are in a worse situation than I am.
In fact, nearly half of all teens believe the economy is getting worse, which could mean more belt-tightening in the future. Elise Preston, CBS News, New York.
That survey included teens between the ages of 13 and 19 from households with an average yearly income of about $67,000. Final check of the forecast next. The CBS Evening News is next, and then on KOAM News at 6, we're going to have more coverage of the election, including a look at the lines to vote in Carl Junction. Plus, we'll check out a watch party hosted by the Jasper County Republicans and how a Missouri mother whose son died from COVID-19 is using her experience to warn others to take the virus seriously. Stay with us for the CBS Evening News and then KOAM News at 6. Take another quick look at our KOAM News Now Insta poll. We're asking, how confident are you that votes will be counted properly nationwide? So far, a quarter, 25%, say very confident, 12% say somewhat confident, and the majority, 63%, say not confident. You can still vote on our poll. Just go to KOAMnewsnow.com/vote or vote through the KOAM News Now mobile app. Checking back in now with Nick Kelly.
Staying quiet but chilly this evening, Dow, with temperatures dropping back into the lower 50s tonight. Even with mostly cloudy skies, we'll stay mild tomorrow with highs near 71, staying mild through Saturday before rain chances sneak back in on Sunday.
Thanks for joining us. CBS Evening News is next. And of course, we're going to be right back here for KOAM News at 6. In the meantime, let's take care of ourselves and each other.